What's up YouTube, Mr. Gizmo here. I am going to be doing some maintenance on the M3 today. So a couple of things that I'm going to do. I'm going to do a valve adjustment, replace the coils and the spark plugs, replace all of these rubber grommets, and that will include the valve cover gasket obviously. So to start with, this is what my engine bay looks like pretty much 24/7. You will notice that I do not have the fan here or the shrouds. I don't have the air filter box there. I don't have the beauty cover. The reason I did this is one, for easy access whenever I need to do something on the car. I really got tired of taking off the shroud and the front fan and the clutch. They got old pretty quickly. I'm in Northern California, not kind of in the desert, so I don't really need the fan for cooling. My cooling system is all refreshed, so I don't see really high temperatures, even when going to the tracks around NorCal here. Unless ambient gets way north of 100, then the car does have a little bit of trouble staying cool. But anyway, so this is kind of my starting point for those of you who will be doing a valve adjustment where you need to rotate your engine. You would probably be using crank pulley. The bolt size changed on the crank pulley. I want to say it was 2002, 2003. So for me, I will be using a 32 millimeter on the crank pulley. For I believe older cars, you might have to use this like 4-prong tool that actually attaches to the 4 bolts that hold the crank pulley on. So you can't just use a 32 on all the cars. So I'm going to start with disconnecting the battery, the negative terminal on the battery, because we're going to be removing the coils and messing with some of the electrical wires here. Alright, so the negative battery terminal in the trunk is disconnected. It's a 10 mil. So what I'm going to be removing next is the strut bar. These are 13s. I'm going to remove this positive terminal wire. I'm going to disconnect this ground. There is an oil return line which has a banjo and 2 washers on it. I will not be reusing the washers, so I don't really care if I drop them. And then we're going to be removing some of the wires for the O2 sensors, and then I'm going to start removing the coils and the spark plugs. Okay, and then this guy's going to sit on the side. I think I've made this note before, but this strut bar should be loosened and tightened when the car is fully on the ground. The way I usually do jobs on the car, put the bolts or the nuts on the places where they came from. That way I have a little bit less stuff to keep track of. Next, remove that. Pinch this guy to remove that connector. Remove this connector here so I can swing this thing out of the way. Just rotate the hose. I've had a problem where I think the hose or the clip broke, so the hose probably split, and I had an air leak there, so just be careful with this guy. The return line doesn't really flex that much. Sometimes it is a little bit tricky to catch these washers. I usually do with needle nose pliers. Alright, next, all of these guys are 10 mils. There are 12 grommets that go along there, and there's one that matches them, and then these 2 longer ones on the studs are actually a different part number, and they're slightly different shape. They're a little bit flatter. So I need a long 10 mil for these and a regular 10 mil for these. These usually come out with the bolts. If they don't, you just kind of pry them out with a screwdriver, but they should come out. Not much to inspect on these really. I mean, they just kind of go flat, and then you start getting leaks. So I've removed all the grommets so far. You can see the last one there. The last one on the intake side has a little bit of oil accumulation there, and there are some streaks of oil running down here. It's possible that one was not either seated properly or tightened all the way. Or it was just flattened from the heat. Cylinder number 6 by the firewall here gets a lot of heat. That's another reason why I actually don't like running this air filter here, just because it traps some of the heat from cylinders 5 and 6, and some of the coils usually blow out quicker. So next I'm going to remove the coils and the spark plugs, and then we'll be ready to pop the valve cover. On the coils with these clips, it's usually hard to get them out. So I usually just use a screwdriver, kind of pop it in there, get the clip up, and then as you push it all the way up to vertical position, it kind of disconnects it from the wire here, but still pulling up using my finger to pull up on the coil is sometimes still a big fail, so to speak. So I disconnect the wire and then I use a screwdriver to just pop it in here and then pull on it with both hands, and then I'll remove it. So I'm gonna again lay them out on the floor so I can inspect them later. I'm gonna lay them out in the order that I take them out. I'll try to capture that on camera, but this is another reason why I'm replacing the spark plug seal tube. I had a little bit of oil streaking. You can kind of see like right where my flashlight is coming out of somewhere in this area. So this is cylinder number 2, or spark plug number 2. And I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can see some oil between the spark plug tube, so on the outside, between the spark plug tube and the valve cover. There's a little bit of a gap there. You can see a little bit of a glistening. That's where the oil was trying to escape. Running the car at Thunderhill and 112 ambient. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this plastic cover from the wires for the injectors. I can do this in a different video, but I do run an E45 kit, and because these connectors take up a lot of space, I can actually not clip this cover on to the bottom of it, so it just kind of sits there. So I'm just going to set it aside here. So I've removed the coils. Again, I've removed the banjo bolt here for the return line, and I have disconnected the ground that goes to the block. I am not removing anything else. And so now the valve cover is ready to get popped off. So you don't have to remove the spark plugs actually, because the spark plugs that are in there are separate tubes. So I am going to be replacing my valve cover gasket, not to make it into its own like 10-minute spiel, but you can reuse genuine BMW OE gaskets. I've gotten into some interesting discussions where I've been called an idiot on some of the Facebook groups, but the Viton gaskets are very different from Buna garbage that gets very dry and brittle very quickly. So these stay a little bit more pliable, and they can be reused. So now we're ready to start removing the valve cover. So I'm going to try to just use my fingers and see if it can pop off. I do not use RTV on it. When I'm reinstalling the valve cover gasket, I will explain on how to do it properly. There are several places you want to put RTV. You don't have to go around the perimeter. But I'll cover that on the reinstallation. So for now I'm just going to start kind of getting a screwdriver in, so you can see it's already very loose, which is great. The problem on reinstallation is all of these wires here, not to get them actually pinched. I will try to find a picture of where I pinched. I think it was the camshaft sensor on the intake side where it got pinched, and I was trying to figure out where the oil leak was, because it was kind of down on the exhaust side by cylinder number 6. I just couldn't for the life of me figure it out, so then I had to just take everything apart, pull up the valve cover again, and then I saw this pinched wire sitting here that was right there. And it was making the oil kind of drip down into that pocket. So now I'm going to try to see if I can get all this stuff. I think I have everything disconnected and out of the way. I did pull out the O2 sensors. So for those of you who have this, I'm going to call it the beauty cover for O2 sensors. It kind of runs right across here and holds your post-cat O2s. You're going to have to remove that and move it out of the way. The pre-cat O2s are the only ones that I'm running right now with my tune. So those are here. The post-cats are disconnected and not on the car. So the only thing that you really have to do with removing the valve cover is just to clear these studs. So these are all the studs where all the grommets sit. I mean, they're not that tall, but that's basically all you have to clear, plus the spark plug tubes, and then you can just pull it out. So here we go. Some of the studs are a little bit longer. There are 6 that are longer than the others that sometimes get caught on some of these wires and hoses. And the reason for that, that's where your beauty cover attaches with those silver nuts. So the 2 up front here, the 2 in the middle, and the 2 in the back. So I'm going to set the valve cover kind of upside down onto the intake right now. Since I didn't remove these 2 8-mils, they're holding the entire wire loom to it. I just don't want to kink the wires too hard.